When my family and I moved to Toronto in the summer of 2019, I was asked why our family would immigrate from Germany as one of the safe and wealthy Western European countries. People asked us if we plan to stay for good. I did not understand this term, for good, meaning to stay forever. Huge questions that I had never thought about at all. Only 6 months after we had arrived in Canada, COVID hit the world. Being in a country you did not yet belong, not entirely being able to speak the language, not acquainted with the culture, and being quite isolated, I started to ask myself many questions. Where do we belong when we come to another country for good? How can we feel home when it has never been home to our families or ancestors before? What happens to our identities as life is turning us into newcomers, immigrants, displaced people, and then Canadians after all?
I arrived in Canada in 2011 at 7 years old. I have now lived here for over 12 years and consider myself Colombian Canadian. Being only 19, I've spent the majority of my life here in Canada. My English is perfect, while my native language Spanish can get rocky. When my parents first told me that we were moving to Canada, I was very confused, because I had no idea that the country Canada ever existed. In a global era of migration, this is a film about swimming roots. Canada's largest city, Toronto, takes huge pride in its multicultural diversity. It's enshrined in the city's official motto, "Diversity, our strength." And even the UN recognizes Toronto as one of the most diverse cities in the world. We wanted to know, what are the challenges that first-generation Canadians, immigrants, and newcomers go through? What are their hopes and dreams? How do they feel living in this multicultural city?
So when I came here, when I realized that Canada is really diverse. There's no particular culture. There's no, I guess, it's very diverse. So there's a bunch of different culture that you can interact with, different people, different mindsets, different backgrounds, different way of life.
I think it's a really good place to stay. Definitely, I did my education, my undergraduation in America, at Indiana University, which was, I guess, not a very big city. So then I moved to Singapore. I worked there for another year, and that was a very good city, which was very multicultural as well. Then I moved to India, and now I moved to Canada for my master's program. And I think this has a really good vibe, multicultural city overall. I think you can meet people from any part of the world, and that's really cool. I feel like you get to know about perspectives from different cultures. I think that's really cool in Canada, and that's something I didn't find in USA or Singapore. I think Singapore was more towards European expats and Asians, whereas US was a mix of like Asians and people from US mostly. But in Canada, you can find people from the US, Asia, South America, even Australia. So like it's a very good multicultural place, and I'm happy to be here, definitely.
My mom's side, she is German and East Indian. And then my father is Armenian, born in Lebanon to an Egyptian mother, Syrian father. And then there's also Greek on my mother's side, Greek Kumbara grandmother, which is really fun too. So yeah, the very Canadian experience from anywhere.
It's also pretty diverse. So I don't really feel like, oh, I'm the only person that I know from that has a mix of these parents. There's also different people that are like similar to me.
Evil and Beth are surprisingly the same or similar to what I've experienced back home. There is more diversity here than back home. I do have a friend in Germany, like from my high school, and she's always like, okay, I'm just surrounded by Germans and Dutch people and like other people. I don't have anyone of my own over here, so she feels kind of lonely. But over here, it's like I have a lot of people who are culturally similar to me and variety. So it's like a bit of everything.
I came in 2010, and the main reason was like for the education of my two daughters who were like 8 and 10 at that time. We wanted to give them a better chance in life than Turkey was offering to them. And we chose Canada because we thought it was safer and easier to adapt for the family, because my daughters didn't speak any English, and my wife didn't speak very well as well. So we chose Canada for that reason. And then we were also like having some business relationships with Canada before, and I had been to Canada a couple times. And I saw that Canada was actually a nice place to live and safe, and that we could be happy there. That was the main reason why we chose Canada to come.
There is such an appreciation for different cultures here in Canada. Everybody is happy to learn about different cultures and learn about people's experiences. It's a very loving community, I would say, and especially being someone who's in music, you have the wildlife of different people, and you get to learn about these things.
For me, I felt like everything was very suitable for newcomers to settle here. I think this country is built by immigrants coming here, so it's prepared for people to come here and try to settle and feel like.
I come here to Canada, right, to begin kindergarten, and whenever I was in Canada, I would just be at home, so we'd speak Bulgarian, so I actually didn't know any English, even though I was a Canadian citizen. My parents got my citizenship for me when I was still a baby. And so I go to kindergarten class, and there was this little Chinese girl who had just started, like, she had lived here a couple months longer than I had lived here. And so the little Chinese girl taught the little Bulgarian girl how to speak English, and she was still speaking English with an accent, and I was speaking it now with like a mixed up Bulgarian accent that was learning English from a person with a Chinese accent. So it was just very like intercultural, diverse, very mixed.
In Toronto, I think it's very hard. I think Toronto is a very competitive place, and Ontario in general, honestly, there is just so much of a high population that for immigrants, for instance, like there is huge competition.
Well, we weren't expecting much when we came. Actually, we didn't know anybody except like one Canadian guy, and we didn't know what to expect. We are entrepreneurs. We were determined to start up our own business in Canada. We tried to do that. We started manufacturing some candies, but then we started seeing the true face of Canada at that point, actually, and struggles started somehow. It was really hard to get going as a new company, and to find people to work for us. And the whole mentality of people was very different, and they were very picky with jobs, and they didn't come on time, and we had to work on the machines ourselves for many hours, which was very tiring. It's something that we were never used to. Again, we were not used to live like that down to earth in Canada, that we had to take the trash out and do many things ourselves. We were not used to that lifestyle from our country. We were living actually quite well off back home, but there was a dramatic change for us to face the truth in Canada, that you have to really put your foot on the ground and face all the struggles that are coming to you.
So for me, living in Canada has no problem. I love the culture here. I like the lifestyle, the people, especially I landed in Manitoba. Manitoba is called friendly Manitoba.
At first, I felt like a stranger.
I mean, there are many things that make me happy. There are also many things that don't make me happy. But overall, I'm okay. Financially being able to survive, the loneliness because my family's not here. It's like, I can see so many people, like my friends and all, they have someone here, but I'm like completely alone and I just have them. So it's like they can run off to someone else, but I just have them. If I don't have them, I have them. So there's that. That doesn't make me happy.
The language is a big challenge because in that time I was speak English zero. The confused for sure. Sometimes with I feeling lonely, or because we need to make a new friends over there. A lot of the friends in China. I feel little bit sad because before I doing it's very different than right now. Right now I just do the labor job.
Definitely the first years in Canada for any immigrants are tough. I was not a different person in this case. Was tough. The language barrier was a big issue. And as well to find that our professional careers in our back home are very important there, but here we need to do a process to try to be recognized as a professional. I am an engineer, and to work as engineer, to work here, it's a process to get recognized.
We gave up after a couple of years with that adventure of having a manufacturing plant. We got lucky. We found someone who bought it off us for not much money, but we sold it. And then after that point, we tried many different alternatives to, I have a good education. I tried to get a job.
Maybe the biggest challenge is to be connected, because as a newcomer, you move from your country where you have a network of people that you know through your life, your family, your relatives, your friends, your coworkers, your clients, your suppliers, many people that you have been connected through the years. When you left your country and you came to Canada, you lost all these people, and this is the network that you need to create here. And I said I use an analogy all the time. It's like a tree. You have a tree. You are the bone of the tree, but the roots, that is the network that has been created through the life, is lost when you move away from your country. And when you land in Canada, you need to start rebuilding these connections. And this is the toughest part, because many people are not good doing this kind of construction, because they don't know how to start. They don't know how to rebuild the connections. And definitely to be connected here is very important, very critical to get an employee, to get employee, or to get a business and develop a business like I did. But definitely, I think the biggest challenge is to rebuild connections, to rebuild a network, and do it well.
I felt lonely first, and then I felt that my shoulders are very, very heavy, because everything will depend on me, how I feel, and how I have to lead my family to do what they need, or what they need, or maybe how I can be a good support for them, and how I can feel my place in this new environment. So we moved quite a lot, and And each time it was the same. At the beginning was very interesting, very joyful, and then after a few months, sometimes a few weeks, I feel okay. Now I on my own.
I think, you know what, Canadian are people who they're well loved all over the world, right? And I think it comes from the ability to provide a perfect, well, perfect, this thing is perfect, but a close to perfect infrastructure. No matter what your political views are, we are well taken care of. We live in a country that is safe, right? We live in a country that is tolerant, that is respectful, that honors differences, and I think that's huge.
The Canadian is all mixed. The people come everywhere and like a boil water to mix all together. Yeah, everybody on a different language and brain, and yeah, just a feel like a more freedom. Yeah.
Sorry is the word for Canadians. It's in general, Canadians are really nice people. Canadians are very well educated. They are smart, and but they are very individualistic. So, like I said, everybody gives you maybe a pat on the shoulder and tries to be nice. Not as drastic as the Americans do it, but at the end of the day, nobody really holds your hand to come forward in your new life in Canada. It's everybody is on their own.
I don't think there's like a set on image of like what a Canadian looks like, for instance, is because like Canadians, they come in like variety forms of like, you know, like you can be like Asian Canadian, you can be African Canadian, you can be like Syrian Canadian. There isn't just one definition to being Canadian, but I think the best thing about Canadians is that like, you know, that they're more compassionate than others. So I think the compassion of being Canadian is very prominent in like being told that like, oh, this person's Canadian or I am Canadian as well.
In Canada, people are more. Maybe it's the way things work. People are more scared in expressing their opinions honestly and openly. So they tell you some things, but they don't take it further. They just give you an initial spark, and that's it. It's the culture.
Very, very stereotypical stuff.
Yeah.
Right? People stereotype here a lot, and they won't say it. That's the thing.
Ooh, so bad.
I feel like I heard this expression, and I don't know if it's true, but they said the difference between Canadians and Americans is that Canadians will smile to your face and then stab you in the back. And then Americans will just say F you right to your face and not care about it. And I think that is very much true.
Oh, of course. And it's like in every single like situation. I remember like this one time in high school, like we had a supply teacher and I had a whole good conversation with her. And it was a really nice conversation and it was like pretty, like it was flowing pretty well. And then right at the end of the conversation, she asked me, where are you from? And I told her I'm Afghan. And her face changed so quick. So it's like at that time I was like probably 16. So it's like imagine being 16 and dealing with that.
There are in some way, the racism, when you are trying to find a job in the beginning and they ask for Canadian experience and you're a newcomer, but it's impossible to have Canadian experience as a newcomer. Doesn't matter if you are a well-prepared individual. I think that is not fair. In that way, we can feel some racism, but in the other ways, I think it's a diverse country. It's a very open country, and the government, the people normally. I have had not any issue with the racism in regards my career and my family.
And then there's people who basically show that it's not just being Afghan, but it's also being Muslim as well. Being Afghan Canadian, but Muslim as well, is very difficult. People who wear a hijab, for instance, like I used to wear a hijab when I was around 13, and people will say those things that you think people don't say. They will call you racial slurs. They will be racist towards you. They will call you the T word. And it's like terrible. And you think it doesn't exist, but it really does. So it is very difficult to get anywhere being a certain background or believing in a certain religion. I feel like Afghans, for instance, like were portrayed as like vicious animals who like either we're dying one end or we're being killed or we are doing the killing. I feel like we need to have like a way to portray that we're not just what we are right now, a war zone country. And with like our passion for clothes and stuff and art wise, I think we can show people more that, Afghans are more than that. We're like lovely people. We are kind and we do have interest in arts as well.
Not really, actually. It was way better than I thought it would be. I had thoughts before coming here about what people might think about me, but it was actually way better than I thought. Everybody was very welcoming. It's my new home, basically.
We are diverse, but we are still white, which is very important. Our government is still very white. We are diverse, and most communities are actually sticking to each other.
For me, not as much. I've placed myself in very liberal spaces. My mom has been told like a lot to go back to her own country, as has my granddad. All of my family has felt that. My dad has felt that. My aunts have felt it going across the border, living here. People just don't see us as the same sometimes, and it hurts because it's like I've been here my whole life. I experienced it, so 10 years after 9/11, maybe, I was in 7th or 8th grade, and what a boy had turned to me and said, like, is your grandfather like Osama bin Laden? And I looked at him, and I genuinely, at the time, I had no idea what he was talking about. I was like, who's that? My granddad's name is Ali. Abu is Ali, and he's Abu to me. I don't call him by his name or anything, so he's Abu, like, I don't understand. And years later, I just, like, it hit my head, and I was like, oh my God. I understand what you were saying now, and I can't imagine how many, because I just like see things surface level. I can't imagine how many things I just passed over.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, here, and what's the word that I'm looking for? I'm what is it? I mean, I should look more Indian because I'm mixed, so Indian people see me and they go from...
say that we are people of color, but we are white passing.
White passing, that's the word. White passing.
Yeah. So we could never say anything about it. I would never ever say that we were ever discriminated against because of the way we look, how we live our lives. So, no.
I'll never forget Miss Long. She was a pain in my butt. Yeah, she didn't really like black students, but, she was my English teacher.
They make it more challenging for some people, I think, than other people to get their life back on the right track. I think they really do like to keep certain people down and give other people opportunities, or like you said, more leniency. It's kind of funny. It's not funny. It was kind of funny because she was restocking something, and then we walked down and I look and she's restocking the aisle that we just walked into, and I'm like, God, that was so fast. Then we walked to like a totally opposite side of the store, and I looked behind me, and she was right there restocking. And I'm like,
I never noticed.
This is not a coincidence. Like, oh my God.
I think the main thing, like fitting in, for instance, is like there were some points of like when I used to like grow up, like I told you, I would wear like Afghan clothes to school because I was so like happy about my culture, but it's frowned upon. You can't just go out and wear like, you know, a cultural dress outside and not think about like people saying rude things to you. You wear a cultural dress, the last thing you're thinking about is someone making fun of you for wearing something that you're not supposed to be wearing because it's out of the norm. So obviously dressing a certain way, looking a certain way, looking presentable, it's all like a part of the norm. And you change certain ways that you do things, and you change certain like features of yourself to fit in.
I'm reminded of conversations that I've had with people whom I disagree with, and oftentimes they'll talk about re-education programs or education programs in general. And I think to myself that, like, if someone told me when I entered their country that I had to be re-educated to fit in with people, I would be furious. I would be livid, because why are you telling me what to do? Why does my mom have to go through something like that to learn English the way that you speak it? Why does she have to feel ridiculed because her English is just, sometimes she doesn't understand words? Or why does she have to be laughed at when certain words are brought into the conversation and she uses them and she doesn't mean to hurt me? But it comes off that way because that word is just not used in my vocabulary, but it is in hers.
Well, I'm LGBT, right? So I don't have to hide that, for example. Or I don't hear political views that I like disagree with, and like I feel like I can't speak up. I feel that I fit in when I'm in the presence of my best friend and when I'm in the presence of my partner. That's where I truly feel like I can be my whole self, you know.
Oh, I think in Spanish there is a slogan that we say you have to do the things that are living, are you seeing, and you have to behave accordingly with these kind of things. As an immigrant, we need to adapt, and we left our countries, and we need to be very open in assume and adapt to the new culture, to the new languages. And it's part of the thing that we need to do as an immigrant. Canadians are doing their part, giving us the opportunity to be here, but we need to do our part, and we need to fit. We need to accommodate. I said all the time to many newcomers, immigrants that I've been coaching through the years, that we need to adapt to the system. No, it's very hard to adapt the system to us. Then, in my opinion, we need to learn about how to behave here, how to move here, how to look for things here, how to adapt the resume, how to adapt to say and respond questions. And it's something that we need to adjust. It's not the Canadian system is not adjusting to us. Then, as an immigrant, we need to understand that situation.
We always talk about it in politics where, like, immigrants, it's often, we forget how many languages folks know. It's like if English is your fifth or third or second language, how are you talking about someone with as if they have a lesser intelligence, when in reality they have so much more intelligence than someone who can only speak one language and who only knows how to think in one linear direction.
I don't really know exactly where I belong. I think between the two identities, I'm definitely more Canadian now than I am Bulgarian.
Although I can call myself Afghan Canadian, I haven't like dealt with half of what they have dealt with back home. So it's like I can like run around saying I'm Afghan Canadian, but I don't generally know how it is to be like actually Afghan because I've been displaced here.
Definitely, I feel more comfortable after a month, and I think it's just going to get better. I've made like many new friends out here. The university is good. People are more adapting and accepting over here. So I think that's a really good quality to have in a country, especially like when you move from so far away from home. But definitely like my heart is like back at home in India. Like I miss my friends and family, but my mind right now is in North America and especially Canada in this moment, because I'm here with a certain goal and I want to achieve it. And yeah, I think it's a good place to be in, and it has a lot of opportunities for people, and it provides equal opportunities irrespective of where you come from, which I really respect and admire.
I don't belong to Canada and I don't belong to Pakistan, although I belong more so to Canada than Pakistan, if that makes sense. The child of the universe. That's rare. Yeah. I am Filipino and Canadian, and also human. I think I'm just gonna go back to basics. I'm Ali's granddaughter. I'm Amjad's daughter, and that's who I am. I'm Asa's daughter. I'm the daughter of several generations of Pakistani women who've tilled the fields, who've farmed, and I hold all of their courageousness. I hold all of their resilience. I hold their dedication to the land. I hold their identities, and I think I'm still trying to sparse out what identities those are, but I remind myself every time I'm picked on for my nose, for my hair, for my eyes, whatever they be, for the fact I wear glasses, that my ancestors have held all of these beautiful attributes in different generations, in different aspects. They've all held this intellect that I've been able to experience, and so I am my ancestor's daughter.
I think I was around 21, 22, and I had that moment. Who am I? And I think that lasted all of about 30 seconds. But it was a very confusing, like a stopgap moment where I really thought, what am I thinking about here? And then I just realized, you know what? I am the sum of the best things of all of those people. And then I just moved on. It was done.
Who I am is a 22-year-old who thrives and lives for opera. The art, music is really what gets me going. It keeps me up every day. It's why I do what I do. It's my job, basically. We're singing athletes. This is what we do. And me as a person of who I am, it's music, arts, and culture is really who I am, I would say, as a person.
I think, isn't it like a saying, home is where the heart is? So I feel like it'd be like a mix of an area, but also a mix of like the heart as well.
I can understand the aspect of not really feeling at home, because there's always that disconnect where we speak a different language external to the house, but we speak Urdu at home or Punjabi at home. But if I go to Pakistan, like, I'm identified as like a foreigner. So they look at me and they're like, okay, like your skin is too dark, or the way that you speak Urdu is not proper, and the way that you speak Punjabi is just not making sense to me. Whereas here it's perfectly fine, and it's celebrated almost that I can even speak the language. So it's just an interesting, I think, concept, the language portion. And the reason I bring that up is I've been meandering and pondering through that particular aspect of home, how your language dissociates you or associates you with certain communities, and where that stands on your socioeconomic plane as well. I was chatting with my mom about that, and just about what kinds of dialects identify you to a certain space. So the way that I speak English might not be the same as the way that someone else speaks English elsewhere across the country, but how do we still come together and communicate in a certain way?
I feel home, like I have lived in different places all my life long, and I feel home is where I'm happy, and of course, obviously, home is where my family is as well. But now I had to come away from my family in order to make a living. So home is where I have friends and family. The rest is actually not that important. And of course, like where my basic needs are provided for, shelter, food, that Maslow's theory of motivation. As soon as I have them, I can be home anywhere. And there is really no home in that sense. I was feeling I would be, like I said, I'm proud Canadian, but I would be happy in Canada as well. But it's really very, very tough, especially for new guys. I've been there for 13 years. I'm Canadian now, but it's still tough. So I would rather be there than here.
When you say the word home, I think it's where you belong, basically, and it's where you feel comfortable, at peace, and where you can be yourself, where you don't need to be, I guess, anxious or left out. But that's what I think of home. It doesn't have to be a particular place. It just needs to, I guess it's a feeling, basically. That's what I think home is.
I think we learn from what our ancestors did, so what our parents brought with them. So I think it's you learn from the other generations. On her father's side, being Armenian, there was always traditional cooking. We have a lot of great friends who are from different parts of the world, and we would participate in whatever sort of festivities they would have, be it Kwanzaa, be it whatever celebration, Diwali. And, this is sort of how we just make things our own. And you see it nowadays, too, because how many times do offices have Diwali parties? Mm-hmm. And, if you think of it, for lack of a better word, you've got all these manja cakes now celebrating these festivals that have traditionally been part of someone else's culture. So I think, again, that's the beauty of what makes us Canadian. And I think we'll just continue to take the best of whatever there is and just bring that forward to the next generation. I don't need to, is it accurate? No, it's that person's experience that, took the time to share with me what they were very passionate about and what they valued about their culture. So I think that's how we bring that forward.
Home is probably where I feel comfortable with my friends and family, and I'm able to cherish moments with them and learn more about my own culture. Obviously, it's very difficult to do that here, but if I ever had the chance to go back home, I think that would be where home is, which is Afghanistan.
It's very artificial. I think we've had to label it in a certain way because we don't know how to develop a community. Our connecting pieces that we're all different, and so it's hard for us to come together and realize a nationalistic tie that brings us all together. And I think that in a nefarious sense, the government does use that in various ways. They use it to promote, different excursions that they do external to the country where our soldiers are, where we promote social well-being, where we promote health, what kinds of things we do, and we all talk about, we're all different. But I think when they don't really think about the individual person, the person who comes here and doesn't know that, like, how to stand in the line because in their country that's just not done, or how to find their own kinds of grocery stores and how to experience other cultures without feeling like they don't belong. So I think that the Mosaic Theory it's good enough to explain things, but it's not when you start to delve into it, when you start to discuss what portions of our identity are actually being dissociated from us when we talk about that idea.
Oh, definitely. I think the Mosaic Theory definitely applies to Canada. As I mentioned, you can find people from different cultures and different parts of the world. And it's really good to see that such an accepting and positive environment at the same time, when I feel like there's no discrimination here as well. So that's pretty good. At least I haven't felt that in the time I've been here. So, and everybody is open to speak to anyone. Like if you're even lost somewhere, like in downtown or outside on the streets, anyone can help you at any time. People are very chill here. Like it's easy to talk to. You don't have to think twice because I guess everyone has come from different parts of the world and everyone is here with a goal. Mostly people are left their families and come here, just like myself. So I think everybody just wants to make friends and create a positive environment and just be accepting to this multicultural and mosaic place. Especially Toronto, I feel like that it's really good for people from different cultures, and I feel a part of it now, to be honest.
where sometimes we feel connected is the things that we do similarly, and then where we don't feel is where the Mosaic Theory comes together. It's like, we're all different, so it's all okay, but it's really not, because there are some things that just still dissociate us from community, right? We come here and then we search out people of our own people, and then, but you still promote the Mosaic Theory, whereas people from other communities oftentimes look down on people from certain areas because they look a certain way, they act a certain way. And so I don't know if the Mosaic really explains it or is helpful.
It works. Absolutely works. We see it all the time. And I mean, and I talk about it because of my family. I talk about it because of, if we think of ourselves as, we're sort of the little center seed, and then there's all these concentric circles around us, right? Our immediate family, the people we go to school with, we're friends with, associate, and it's just these, it's like the pond effect that bubbles out, right? So by having this mosaic, it allows us all to take the best of what we have. When you have a melting pot, it basically says, that's terrific that you were that way, now you're here, you will do it my way or the highway. That's not the way to do it, because how are you going to erase 20, 30 years, or even from a small child, what they're used to? You can't just say, well, you're here now and your life, no, it's not real. You need to allow people to be who they are, and you need to allow, everybody wants to contribute. Everyone wants to be seen and heard. And the mosaic allows you to do that, right? I mean, that's, we look at the most ancient things that we have, the mosaic in that sense, right? And we look at that and we go, wow, like you took all those different pieces and you created this beauty? Why not do that with culture?
The melting pot is also not helpful because that waters down your identity into one singular kind of person, but there's no singular kind of person ever. Like standing here today, all three of us are very different identities, very different spaces, and we exist very differently, whether it's gender, where we're from, like our country, it's just our basic mannerisms, the way that we stand, the way that we function, the way that we chat with one another. I just don't think either of those theories are sufficient, and I think it's about time we find something better.
The way Canada is bringing in a lot of immigrants isn't quite like sustainable, to be honest. But it is sustainable in more of like a economic way. For instance, like there's people who, like, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but like white people, for instance, like they get the better jobs, which is what we can see is because they've had generations that live here. But there are also smaller jobs that are very much in need of people, like Uber drivers, people who work at grocery stores. But not a regular person who has family and inheritance that lives here is going to, work that job for their entire life. So in order to fill in those positions, I feel like that's the reason why the government is bringing in more immigrants. And the easiest way for that is immigrants, because they don't speak proper English and they need a job, and that's where they get placed.
How can all the different stories and memories, the hardships and traumas of so many people within this city be channeled into a happier, healthier, and saner future? Toronto is in a league of its own, with more than 250 ethnicities present, around 180 different languages and/or dialects spoken, and where half of its residents are born outside of Canada. Can this community truly become culturally inclusive? What are the dreams of the people who are in this country?
I think that once I get a quote, I'll be able to pay off my tuition. Hopefully I get a job. So I guess my dream would be to kind of mush my two lives into one. Hopefully here. But if life doesn't permit, maybe over there. Hopefully not. But yeah.
I have a dream of like building my own home, on some land. That's really it. Like I don't want an extravagant, lifestyle or whatever. I just want the, regular, Canadian life,
I probably will always retain some sort of Canadian citizenship. So yes, I will be building a house, probably. But that is very much my goal as well, because what is all of this worth when it's not worth anything? Do you know what I mean? So if I have a big section of land and I've got my own water and I'm self-sufficient, then God forbid something happens, like it's fine, I don't have to worry.
My future is a mess up, so I hope he can move to the good university and get a good job, and the good family he owns. So that's my dream. And when he came to or went to go to the university, we can travel around the world. It's my dream.
My quality of life now, it's amazing. Like, I don't think I can complain about it. We have a house now. Before, we used to live in a low-income house. We all have cars. We all, it's like that dream that like everyone gives you, that white dream life that everyone throws at you and you never had before. But like now that you work towards it, now you have, it's like you're like, oh, I'm there. Like I'm satisfied with what I have right now. If you asked me when I was in like high school, maybe like, no, I wouldn't have been. I mean, my quality of life is pretty trash. But right now, alhamdulillah, it's really good. It is the Canadian dream, honestly. Canadians can't even afford their own houses these days. So it's like the fact that like being an immigrant from an immigrant household and owning your own property on land that is not even yours, it's a pretty huge accomplishment. Like, especially for my parents, like they can tell their family back home now, you know what, we own land here. This is our home.
There is no Canadian dream. So I can easily say that. I mean, many people come to Canada with many expectations, and I met over the years many newcomers who had very decent education, and they scored high on their immigration points. But when they came, really there was nobody to turn to, no authority, nobody was helping out Canadian newcomers. I mean, there is a website called Job Bank. Everybody directs you to there, and then you can apply indefinitely, but nobody ever gets you to an interview, because those jobs are just there for local companies to tell to government that they try to hire a non-Canadian or a newcomer, but they couldn't find, and then they already were taken someone else anyways. So it's to my surprise, it's all about networking in Canada. And I wasn't expecting that. And I thought that Canadian dream would be like more fair society, that everybody gets a equal chance of succeeding, but it's actually totally not true. And it's not different than any other country. It works the same way. You just need to know the right people at the right time and do the right moves. Or you have to come with a bunch of money and then spend it, which I did as well, actually, in Canada. And I also met a lot of people who went through the same process. You know, for over the years, they spent their fortune, and then they had to be a Uber driver or something. So, which is very, very sad for Canada, because there is no pointing from, like I said, from the government when you are coming, that you should go through a process of re-education or something, and nobody directs you there. Most people who have been successful in their home countries, they come to Canada, and the moment they see that it's actually not what they expected, the younger ones, they either try to go to the US because the jobs pay more, and there are more jobs over in the US. That's a common fact. I mean, even the Canadians, like Canadian-born kids, are dreaming of that. And moreover, for newcomer families above a certain age, there is really no chance. I mean, unless you can succeed in doing something on your own, open a restaurant, or, like I said, be a Uber driver, there is little future for people. So most of them, they either give up and move back, or they keep on struggling until their kids grow up, which I did. And so my kids grew up, and they're on their own. They get a okay job, and one of them went to the US to study, and now I'm in Europe back again.
Um, I think Canada is a very interesting country because the immigration policy and the economy, the political situation of Canada is stable and it's a serious country, and it's a country that has a spectacular acknowledgement. I'm not sure if the word is acknowledgement or the community, the international community see Canadians as a very fair country, honest country, peaceful country, and that is maybe the most important thing in a very complicated worldwide situations. Then the Canadian society, I think, could be a very good example to the world in how we respect other religion, other ideologies, other people, other many different nationalities, and we can live together in a very beautiful country, in a very beautiful cities. That I think that maybe is the big message that Canada has for the world.
If we don't change, we are moving towards becoming a country that has its own diaspora. So it's we have the Chinese, we have the Indians, and then we are like actually that dream of having a multicultural Canada is only in words. It will stay in words if we don't change. We have to force people to get more together. But of course, not like with decent policies, with decent immigration policies. So that's what I mean. Because Canada is not built on that. The whole idea of Canada was like that, where people come and then they live happily together. We still live happily together, but we actually ignore each other at the moment. Even if you stop legal immigration, there will be all these people coming anyways, because migration is something not stoppable. People are suffering. The world is full of inequalities. All these people are always going to try to go to wealthier countries. That's why, like we were discussing, Germany will never be able to stop this, no matter what they try, because they cannot close the borders. There are just way too many borders.
Those cookie cutter neighborhoods, it was almost up in Peterborough. I was surprised to see neighborhoods that looked like Dundas. I was like, oh my gosh. And that's like what they're not getting. Like, okay, well, let's sell these houses outside of the city, but we're still going to build them like a city, which is like where they're kind of losing people, I think, because if people want to leave the city, they don't want to be 2 feet from their next door neighbor in these tiny little houses, right? It's just not sustainable. Like, nothing is being made sustainably, like, to think of the future, so.
Everything's marketed towards, like,
luxury life, I'd say. Well, even, like, Northern Toronto, it's like Muskoka, it's the same thing, right? It's, like, all luxury. So, you're out there, but you're not out there.
In a flash. Absolutely. And the reason for that is we have so many things that the rest of the world has, right? So population, trying to assimilate people, all of those things. But the beauty is that we've already proven that you can live in harmony, that you can live and respect multiculturalism. So there's nothing to prove here. We've done it. We've been living this, right? So if anything else, to be a role model would be amazing. We've already got it here. So why wouldn't we take it out into the world stage and say, maybe you should take a look at how we do things. Just have a look.
Well, I don't think it's comparable because Canada has a different geography. I mean, first of all, we still need people. And it's very secluded from the rest of the world. And, in European countries, it's different. They're all neighbored by, 5, 6 other countries and of different income levels as well. So I don't think Canadian immigration system can be reflected onto another country at all, actually.
There's a lack of compassion when you're walking around Toronto and you see people who don't have homes and who are struggling in life, and yet we just want to sort of barricade ourselves from that and think single-mindedly about other things. So I think that it's partially just that those basic ideas, those basic human functions sometimes are missing. The compassion that people feel towards one another is just not there. I mean, and I'm part of that myself, right? I don't want to walk down Victoria Street because I fear for like my own safety. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, is it safe here? Keeping in mind that obviously campus does what they can and like folks do what they can, but it's like it's almost never enough. But we get very agitated very easily, and we don't remember that other people are people.
Okay, if you don't fit into Toronto, we've got like thousands and thousands of acres of other places where you can go to build a business, do whatever you used to do at home, and if you want to make enough and, you know, split things at home. But I think the answer, not the answer, but the suggestion might be that embrace what there is, and everyone just needs to just stop for a minute and just chill and do an assessment of whenever you do something that serves other people, it brings success back to us 100-fold. That's my belief, right? And I think as a culture, if people did that, that would be a good thing. There's also the financial impact. And I think there also needs to be a candid discussion, because some nationalities they're very tight-lipped about saying, here are the rules. This is how we choose to live here. When you come here as a guest into our culture, and these are the ways of the nation, and we kindly ask you to respect that. You will not be able to recreate what you had over there, maybe in your little community, maybe in your household, but do not expect us to change to your ways. You will become a part of us. You will assimilate to the point of being able to keep your culture, your history. We will never go after you and take it away from you. But at the same time, do not expect now, because you're here and now there's many of you, that you're going to rebuild Rome over here. Not going to happen. And that's a tough discussion, I think, for politicians, for people to have, but it needs to happen.
I feel I'm proud to be Canadian because nobody should take democracy for granted. And I'm happy in Canada and proud because we are still a working democracy as long as it works. And I hope it doesn't fade away.
So I think there needs to be a more open dialogue. And I think we would be happy as a nation to share that and just ask people to be honest. And they have to they have to speak the good, the bad, and the ugly. That's the only way we're going to get through this. Like that whole sugarcoating that we talked about, if that's all we're going to do and just smile at each other's faces, nothing is ever going to change.
How beautiful the country is. Just outside of the GTA, it is so beautiful. Like you can't.
Well put together.
You don't know from here. It's beautiful. Oakville is beautiful. The lake is beautiful, but this is like this much of the country
than the GTA.
And if you want to come to Canada and truly enjoy it, you gotta learn to love the cold and love being outside, because that's going camping, going portaging. Like that is how you see the country.
That's my first point. Don't come. There is no like that. There is no expectation in Canada. Second, if you decide to come, despite this, you should get an education and be ready to survive on your own with no income for the first 2-3 years. And last, even after that, nothing is guaranteed in Canada. You can get a job, you can lose your job. It's the bitter truth. So you should be ready to adapt and pivot. So you should be able to, like I did, like I moved now. So, and I know many people who move away from Canada after they get Canadian citizenship.
One of my aunts likes to say very, very clearly, and my uncles, they like to say, have a friend from everywhere. And that's how you best become like as multicultural as possible, but also as like you start to feel more at home because there are these people who actually acknowledge that you have interests that are in your own culture, and then you have interests in other people's cultures.
I think, first of all, people come here, they think money grows on trees and there's no hard work that gets put towards it. I think people who come here, for instance, like immigrant-wise, and they want to work towards what they want, I think they have to work very hard. It's not very easy. It's not like we get something put on a platter for us. There is going to be discrimination. There is going to be racism. There is going to be people who tell you that, like, you don't have the funding to do that. But you have to make the funding to do that. To get somewhere you want to be, to see things that you want to see, you have to work hard for it. And that's the only way you're going to get there.
This country is nice, it's clean, it's politically all right. There's laws, people follow them for the most part. But it's a colder life.
Who you surround yourself with is critical.
I'd say take it easy, take your time. I'd say try to make friends, as many friends as you can, because the people are what make you feel comfortable on the place you're in. No matter how much time you spend here, if you don't have people that are that you feel comfortable with, that you have fun spending time with, you won't be able to call the place you're in.
Did what I came here was really putting yourself out there, really.
I think definitely Toronto and the Great Toronto Area is the place to be, because there is where the opportunities are. And people need to understand that come to a country like Canada and a city, and a very competitive city like Toronto, needs preparation, needs sacrifice, needs a lot of work. It's not easy to succeed, but it's very possible to succeed if you are well prepared and you have the willing to do the things differently and to learn and do. That is maybe the key for success here.
The people in this film have had the courage to speak up and share their experiences, thoughts, and feelings as immigrants or first-generation Canadians. We listened to their struggles, their dreams, and their hopes. We have learned that we can make and call another place home, that we can choose to belong, that taking our roots with us and living with more than one culture can be a privilege. Immigrants are strong, otherwise they wouldn't be immigrants.
As deep geopolitical shifts and environmental challenges are happening everywhere in the world, we must accept the fact that migration is the new normal. It is a consequence to the series of crises this planet and its inhabitants face. In a world where more than 281 million people are on the move, it has become the societal challenge to every country people go to or cross. Are we prepared? Can we face societal and economic challenges together while uniting in our democratic values for freedom, respect, and humanity? As we are all members of this one human race, only solidarity, cooperation, and collective thinking will reassure future social cohesion and avoid further societal polarization. No matter who we are, where we are from, or what we believe in, it is our future together which connects and unites us as individuals, a community, and as a society.